All right, so today we're going old school, taking you back to a shocking and iconic hit from the 70s. It was from a rock star that defined the word. And he put every teacher on notice when he wrote this defiant rocker. And all of us have been singing along to it ever since. It's a teenage rebellion track that perfectly captures the restlessness of youth. Plus, there's also some pretty crazy stories here surrounding the song, the band, from spooky urban legends to over-the-top stage antics to a mostly accidental chicken sacrifice. You can't make this stuff up. You're not going to want to miss this one. It's all coming up next on Professor Rock. Hey, music junkies. Professor of Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. You know, if you remember the first record you dropped the needle on, distinctly remember it. You're going to dig this channel of musical nostalgia. Make sure that you subscribe below right now. I know you're going to dig this channel. Even if you are subscribed, make sure to look and see that you are subscribed. We've been having some problems with that. Also, check us out on Patreon. You're going to find an additional catalog there. You can also become an honorary producer to help us curate this music history. We've got full interviews there as well. So I'm excited to return to another one of my favorite shows that we do on this channel. We call it Breakthrough. This show is where we break down songs, albums, or events that kicked open the door to an artist or band's career and gave them that momentum to rocket to long-term success. Today, we're getting into, no other way to say it, a true rock classic. Talking about Alice Cooper's 1972 breakthrough smash, School's Out. Man, this is going to be a good one. So Alice Cooper, whose birth name is actually Vincent Furnier, he began writing songs as early on as junior high. By 1964, Vincent was dreaming of becoming as big as the Beatles. No doubt that had something to do with their Ed Sullivan performance. Vincent recruited some classmates to form a band, and they dubbed themselves the Earwigs. Dressed in Beatles attire, they played the Letterman's talent show at their high school in Cortez High in Phoenix, Arizona. In 1965, the guys had changed their name to the Spiders, and then in 1967, they went by the Nas. But after discovering Todd Rundgren also had a band called Nas, they settled on the name Alice Cooper. Now, this was in 1968. There are some urban legends surrounding this name for sure. For example, it's long been rumored that the moniker came from a Ouija board session. Reportedly, Vincent made contact with a 16th century witch whose name was Alice Cooper, and he adopted the name thereafter. The truth, however, is less dramatic. Still a little creepy, though. The name came out of a band brainstorming session. In his autobiography, Golf Monster, Cooper wrote that they had resolved to come up with something spooky. The band had a penchant for horror, and the first name out of his mouth was actually Alice Cooper. In his mind, it conjured up the image of a little girl holding a lollipop in one hand and a butcher's knife in the other one. Now, years later, Vincent Furnier would legally adopt the name for himself and thereafter be known as Alice Cooper. So in addition to Alice Cooper, Vincent, Alice Cooper, the band's roster included guitarist Michael Bruce and Glenn Buxton. There was also bassist Dennis Dunaway and drummer Neil Smith. Now, in time, they moved to LA where they routinely repelled audiences with their shows. Their future manager, legend Shep Gordon, he said, "I saw people streaming out of a club as soon as the band began to play, and I knew I had a winner. I'd never seen such a strong negative reaction. People hated Alice, and I knew that anyone who could generate such strong negative energy had the potential to be a really big star." So in 1969, Shep introduced the band to Frank Zappa. He signed them to his label, Straight Records. Alice Cooper would record 2 albums for Zappa, Pretty's for You and Easy Action, before he changed to Warner Brothers in 1970. At that time, they also relocated to Detroit. This is where they developed their infamous shock rock stage act, climaxing with an execution via gallows, guillotine, and electric chair. There's actually one particular incident that I should mention that really helped their shock rock act gain traction, if you will. It was an accidental chicken execution. You've probably heard this story. Cooper explained what really happened. He said, we're doing the show. Somebody throws a chicken on stage. And I'm going, huh? I didn't bring it. So I pick it up, and I'm from Detroit. So it has feathers. It has wings. It should fly. So Cooper threw the chicken out over the crowd, expecting it to fly. Unfortunately, the audience tore it to pieces and then threw it back on stage. So the next day, headlines across America read, Alice Cooper kills chickens, drinks blood. When Frank Zappa found out, he called Alice and he asked him, did you kill a chicken last night on stage? Cooper said, no, I didn't. Zappa's reply, well, whatever you do, don't tell anyone you didn't do it. They love it. Alice Cooper continues to maintain that chicken sacrifice wasn't intentional. But regardless, it did provide the band with some serious publicity and gave them some serious street cred as well. Now, while in Detroit, the band connected with producer Bob Ezrin, moved into a farm, and under his direction, they began to hone their musical chops. According to Alice Cooper, Bob made them stop touring and stop writing. Then he put them in a barn for 7 months and had them work from 10 a.m. until 10 p.m. and, relearn how to be Alice. He took them to a whole new level, whole other level. As we continue to break down this song, I do want to thank our sponsor, Zenni Eyewear, the glasses that I always wear on the show. You know that you can design your very own glasses at Zenni. You can choose the color, the shape, the size, and the style, and you can put your own message on the side. I've got rock and roll on the side of these ones. Customize your own pair, and you can get up to 80% off regular retail prices with a no-risk guarantee. That's phenomenal. Click on the info button right up here to get our best deal, the PR deal. Get yourself some glasses. So in 1971, Alice Cooper released their third studio album, Love It to Death. This featured their first top 40 single, I'm 18. Seems like the practice paid off. However, their next album, Killer, also released in 71, it failed to up the ante. The band released 2 singles from the record, Under My Wheels and Be My Lover, and they stalled at number 59 and number 49, respectively. For their part, Warner Brothers had expected a much bigger response from these 2 records. So questions started to arise. Had this young band already peaked? For their next album, Alice Cooper would respond with an emphatic, hell no. They were going to blow all the naysayers to pieces. Alice Cooper got to work on their 5th studio album, School's Out, while they were on tour supporting Killer. Wanting to play to their target audience and capitalize on the youth demographic, the band decided to write a concert album about juvenile delinquency. Good subject for rock and roll. School's Out was inspired by old movies on late night TV, and believe it or not, West Side Story. Said Alice Cooper about it, it was part of us. We listened to the West Side Story soundtrack all the time. We just related to that era, for some reason. We related to the Jets and the Sharks. It all made sense to us. There's something about a band and a gang that's very similar. Springsteen and Billy Joel and a lot of artists from that time were influenced by West Side Story, actually. As for late night TV, Alice Cooper was watching a rerun of the 40s TV hit The Bowery Boys when he heard the line, "Hey Satch, school's out." That expression meant something like, stop taking things so seriously. You're not in class now. After hearing that, Alice thought to himself, you know what? What if school really was out? From there, he decided to write a collection of songs connected to the end of school. The result was an album that epitomized the rebellious spirit of rock and roll. It was a daring declaration of youthful nonconformity. And just as the band had anticipated, it of course struck a chord with the rising generation. It was released on June 30th of 1972. School's Out went gold in the U.S. in less than 2 weeks. And it was well on its way to a platinum certification. That was back in the day when those were big numbers. School's Out actually peaked at number 2 on the U.S. Billboard 200 album chart. Internationally, it also went to number 8 in Austria and Norway, went to number 5 in Australia, went to number 4 in the UK, number 3 in Germany and Finland, and it went to number 1 in Canada. Well, we got no choice. To punctuate the theme of teen insurgency, the original album featured a sleeve that both looked like a wooden school desk and folded out into one. On it was the carved names and initials of the band members. And then when you opened it up, there was a stockpile of essential items that no self-respecting delinquent would be without. It included a poor report card, a slingshot, and a switchblade. Also, the vinyl record came wrapped in paper panties, though this was later discontinued as they were found to be flammable. Very cool. Credit for the record's soaring success, that of course goes to its notorious title track, School's Out. Said Cooper about it. When we wrote School's Out, we always said, what's the greatest 3 minutes of your life? There's 2 times during the year. One is Christmas morning, when you're just getting ready to open those presents. The next one is the last 3 minutes of the last day of school, when you're just sitting there and it's like a slow fuse burning. I said, if we can catch that 3 minutes in a song, it's going to be so big. End of quote. So Cooper also mused all he had to do was write something that everybody already thought about when it came to school. For example, never having to go back. That's why by the end of the chorus he sings, "School's been blown to pieces." As subversive as that might seem, Cooper meant it to be metaphorical and humorous. If I never see that school again, it'll be too soon, so it might as well be blown to pieces. He also made sure to get the grammar as horribly wrong as he could. After all, it is rock and roll. Ironically, Alice Cooper has said that he loved high school. He called it his feeding ground. He actually claimed that he had more fun there than any place. In his own words, he would say, "I wasn't really anti-school at all, but I figured 99% of everybody else was." Yeah, I mean, I remember Springsteen saying it in Springsteen on Broadway that that's pretty much the key to rock and roll. You have to hate school. That's what it is to be a rock star. On writing the music for the song, bassist Dennis Dunaway said, "The School's Out was the first time the band was convinced one of their songs would be a hit single. All they needed was the perfect lyrics." He remembers that Bob Ezrin sat down with the band and pulled out a legal pad and a pencil. The band started tossing around ideas, and the first verse and the pre-chorus, that came together really quickly. So did the first chorus. However, everyone got stuck on the last line of the second verse. Well, we got no class, and we got no principles, and we got no innocence. Principles, and we got no innocence. And then nothing. They couldn't come up with a rhyme to finish it. So finally, Dennis got to thinking. He said they were like the kids in the song, sitting at the back of the class. "Why are we stuck?" he asked. "'Cause we're stupid," is what Neil would say sarcastically. "Right, well you are," said Dennis. "No, we're stuck because we can't even think of a rhyme." "You're losing it, Dunaway," Neil shot back. "That's the line," is what Dennis would say. "We can't even think of a word that rhymes. That's it." Bob Ezrin smiled, scribbled it onto the page, and the song, it was done. We can't even think of a word that rhymes. Fast forward to the recording studio. One night while recording the guitar parts for the song, Glenn Buxton was going for the lead break. But the track kept coming up cluttered by sounds of rattling, clanking, and scraping. And everybody was perplexed. What's going on here? Then they realized that Glenn was wearing all these voodoo-style accessories, chains, jewelry, chicken claws. So Ezrin had him take it all off, and suddenly Glenn was so quiet you could hardly tell he was there. Afterwards, he nailed the break. The rest is history. Also, the "No More Pencils, No More Books" section of the song, that was sung by a group of kids recruited by Ezrin. Specifically, it was his son and his friends. Pretty cool. You know, sing on a Alice Cooper record. According to Dennis, they fit the bill perfectly and provided just the right touch of cynicism for the track. The first time the band heard the finished mix back in the studio, their suspicions, they were confirmed. They had a hit on their hands for sure. Of course, it's cool that they brought in kids to sing on it. Ezrin would later do that with Pink Floyd. Now, School's Out, surprising, was the album's only single, and it is an absolute Alice Cooper standard, a rock standard. Its catchy melody, its powerful guitar work, and its rebellious lyrics, it made it an instant hit, an all-time classic. The song's anthemic chorus, with the iconic chant, "School's out for summer, school's out forever," that became a rallying cry for students dying to escape the classroom, and its release was really perfectly timed, April 26, 1972. The single hit the airwaves, arrived just as kids were starting to count down the days standing between them and their summer vacation. How perfect. By late July, it had peaked at number 7 on the Billboard Hot 100. The song actually did one spot better on the Cashbox chart. It came in at number 6. Apparently, kids across the world were feeling this one because it also reached number 12 in Austria, number 9 in the Netherlands and New Zealand, went to number 6 in Norway, number 5 in Germany, 33 in Canada, and number 2 in Ireland. It actually went to number 1 on the UK singles chart, so they were really feeling it over there. School's Out, it dominated that summer, and Alice Cooper called it before it even happened. He said there was absolutely no way that song was not going to be a hit. When I heard it on the radio, I went, oh yeah, that's where that song belongs. Any other song? I would have said maybe. Not that one. If that one wasn't a hit, I was going to go sell shoes somewhere. School's Out made Alice Cooper a massive star in the US and the UK, and the band, that Warner Brothers had worried would be relegated to cult status, became one of the biggest groups on the planet. Masters of shock rock. And since then, School's Out has only snowballed. The number of times this song is shown in pop culture, it's ridiculous. For example, you can catch School's Out in The Muppet Show, Beverly Hills 90210, Reality Bites, The Simpsons, Family Guy, Dazed and Confused, Boston Public, School of Rock, That 70s Show, If I Stay, The Faculty, Scream, Everybody Hates Chris, Glee, and I Love You, Beth Cooper. That's just a small sample. This is one of the biggest songs in pop culture. Brilliant touch by Alice Cooper. Additionally, it was initially slotted for a live performance in the 92 movie Wayne's World. Shortly before filming began, though, Cooper's manager, Shep Gordon, insisted that Alice perform one of his new songs instead, Feed My Frankenstein. Still, it was a memorable performance, and Alice Cooper nailed his bit when Wayne and Garth went to see him backstage. So classic.
Worthy! We're not worthy! We're not worthy!
School's Out, as you can imagine, has also been covered by a long list of artists. Night Ranger, The Replacements, Megadeth, Slash, Red Hot Chili Peppers, Soul Asylum, Pearl Jam, They Might Be Giants, Hootie and the Blowfish, Iron Butterfly, Weird Al, his own rock group, supergroup, Hollywood Vampires, and Alice, he's also teamed up with the Foo Fighters to do it on multiple occasions as well. Also worth noting, over time, Cooper has also incorporated another Bob Ezrin standard into School's Out. I mentioned it before. Another Brick in the Wall Part 2 by Pink Floyd. The merger of the two songs has been a fixture in many of Alice Cooper's concerts. Of course, a fitting match if there ever was one. So cool how those two are combined. So what happened after the breakthrough success of School's Out? For those of you that don't know, the band once again came out swinging. This time with a transatlantic #1 album, Billion Dollar Babies. That was released in March of '73.
Mr. Nice Guy.
After that, Alice Cooper's greatest hits came out in '74. However, that same year, Alice Cooper, the group, disbanded to pursue personal projects. They never did come back together, actually. Instead, the former Vincent Furnier, He legally adopted the name Alice Cooper, like I said, and he released a solo album in '75, Welcome to My Nightmare. That went to number 5 in the US. And then Cooper released 4 more albums in the '70s, accruing a few more hits in the process. In the '80s, he hit something of a lull until the 1989 melodic hard rock album Trash, of course, featured the huge single Poison. We're definitely going to have to cover that one down the road. Let me know if you'd like to hear that story in the comments below. We got to get an interview with Alice. I've interviewed his current guitarist before, or he's interviewed me, excuse me. So the 1989 album Trash, that became his biggest selling album. It revitalized his career just in a few weeks. In the 90s, Cooper continued to adapt to the changing musical landscape. He released 2 more albums, Hey Stupid, and then The Last Temptation. In the 2000s and beyond, Cooper has continued his onslaught, from Brutal Planet in 2000 to Detroit Stories in 2021. And then factoring in his upcoming release Road in 2023, Cooper has released 9 studio albums in the new millennium. And the man is in his 70s and he's still kicking and screaming, turning it up to 11 all the time. Just a legend. Throughout his career, Alice Cooper has defied expectations and become a true innovator in the world of rock and roll. From the pioneer days of shock rock to his current work, Cooper's influence, it's undeniable. My dad introduced me to this record when I was a kid. It just spoke to me, as it did you, I'm sure. It was my calling card the night before the last day of school every year. I listened to it a couple of times in anticipation of school being out for the summer. And then that last bell would ring and I'd scream it to the top of my lungs. Soon my own friends caught on and it became a yearly anthem, a yearly tradition. No graded 2 words were ever spoken after that final bell rung. How sweet it was. Thanks so much for watching. Leave us a comment about Alice Cooper and School's Out. What do you remember about this song? Was it an anthem for you? Did you used to sing it when school was out? I mean, I think everybody had an experience like that. Let's have some great stories below. I'd love to hear your comments, your feedback, your feelings on Alice Cooper. If you like our content, we invite you to subscribe. We'd love to have you as part of our community. Until next time, 3 chords and the truth, my friend.